All right, everybody, welcome to Virtual Bourbon. This is our latest event, our newest one with Cooking with Will Whitfield, where we gets into incorporating bourbon, which is our favorite subject, into your cooking. And it's great to see so many new people on this meeting. Really appreciate some folks finding us and being part of this. I think that's really cool. And looking forward to talking to all of you and chatting and getting to know you too. I think it's important for us to start out because we do have some new folks here to talk about who we are. So my name's Steve Akley. I own a company called the ABV Network, and it is a media company that's focused exclusively on bourbon. So bourbon was a hobby of mine that turned into a passion. That's what I do full time now at this point. So we do podcasts, we do documentary movies. We're working on a couple of TV shows, which is kind of cool. And, we've got Bourbon Zeppelin, which is a e-magazine that we do. So there's a lot of different things that we do. We always say that if we're not doing it in bourbon media, we want to. I'd love to have like a syndicated radio show that talks about it. So we're working on all those things. I never know when they're going to happen. But if you dream about it, it just might. So that's a little bit about me. Been doing this full time for the last 4 years, overall 5 years. So 5 years total, 4 years doing it full time. So doing a little part-time side thing for a while, working a corporate job, and then started doing this full time in the last 4 years. My partner on this is my buddy, Mr. Will Whitfield. Will, how you doing, man?
I'm making it for an old man, plugging along.
That's good. That's good. So Will and I we actually met through Instagram at first. So we had a little contest on one of my shows, the Bourbon Daily. Will won and got to come on and did an episode with us. And it turned out not only were we both whiskey fans. Now he's primarily more on the Scotch side. He's kind of getting to be more bourbon friendly over the years, which I've liked. I feel like I've had some influence on that, right, Will? Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, so he's coming to the right side now. He's doing that. But it turns out once we met, I and of course online I knew he lived in Seattle. But once we met and started chatting, turns out he's from St. Louis, which is where I live. I've lived my whole life here in St. Louis, and it turns out that's where Will lived most of his life as well. That's where he's born, raised, grew up. But now he has moved out to the West Coast. He lives in Seattle with his wife and his kids. But yeah, so he's a St. Louis guy. So we had this connection, and then when we started doing these live events, and I know he cooked and all that kind of stuff, I thought, what if we did this? So that's how we got started with this, right, Will?
Yeah, that's it. It was actually, I love the organicness of how that idea came about. It was like, okay, we're talking about bourbon. One thing that we do when we drink, we eat. So let's blend the two. How about you come up with a couple of recipes? Here we go. And this is actually turning into something very, I love it. It's entertaining. It's encouraging, motivating. I love the fact that we can share. That's half the battle with building our community and building our society, is finding things that link us. And the one thing that links us all is food. I mean, it's difficult to be mad at a person when you're feeding a person.
Right.
It's nearly impossible.
Yeah.
So it brings a smile to my face personally. Anytime I can cook for somebody, and show my love for that person or anybody, just general as a human being. It's like, hey, here's a meal. Let's go.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, yeah, and just a little bit about Will's background too. He's all self-taught. So he doesn't work, in the culinary industry. He's actually a plumber by trade, right, Will? That's what you do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
actually,
cooking's
a union plumber by trade.
Yeah.
I've been doing plumbing now for a commercial service plumbing for about 25 years. About 2 years ago, though, I went into the union and started teaching. So now I teach on that aspect. But as a vice of mine, the disconnect from the rigmarole of plumbing, I cook. So this is how I get away. This is what I disconnect with all the troubles that may come across with that industry. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that's really cool stuff. That the fact that you're able to do this, just learn everything yourself, but you're really, I mean, I can't stress how much you're into cooking. You cook all the time. You've got into barbecue competitions, which we'll talk about that in a second. But just focusing on just the cooking that you do, you cook so much, it's more than your family can eat. You end up giving it to your neighbors and stuff like that. So you're always, because you just want to cook, you're out there making the stuff, and it's too much.
It's beyond neighbors at this point now. I got a list of people that sign up, and I just deliver food to them.
Yeah.
So it's coworkers, it's friends. It's friends of friends that I've met on Instagram, Facebook, and I say, hey, I would love a meal. And if it's a rotation going on, like, hey, I'll put you down and I'll swing by, and I don't collect any fees for this. I just drop off food. So as I'm practicing and trying to hone my skills, typically when you're making these meals, for instance, today, making this process here, I'll be making delivery as soon as we get done and dropping off the food that's excess.
Yeah,
to somebody.
That's really cool. Before we talk about the barbecue, one more thing though, you're getting ready to move. Your neighbors are going to hate this. Your neighbors, they're probably trying to do things to stop it. Yeah, I know you're looking at a house. They're probably going there and bend it up or so. They're doing anything they can to keep you right where you're at. And then, but when you get the new neighbors, they're going to love you. I mean,
well, okay, so the old neighbors don't know yet. We haven't discussed that with them yet. They'll still be on the list though for the rotation, but
it'll be less frequent though, for sure. I mean, yeah. The new neighbors are going to be happy though. Wait till they find out.
Oh yeah. There you go.
That's very cool. So, the barbecue tends up to, that's something that you love, you're passionate about, and it ends up being, a hobby, but, you start there because you can do something with that. You can get in competitions that, and you've kind of started doing that in the last couple of years, right?
So about 5 years now, I've been traveling to compete. And it started as this hobby, but it's actually taken off by meeting people and networking, and now it's actually a serious deal. Now I'm investing a lot of money into it and traveling. And fortunately, coming up here in 2 weeks, I have the opportunity to go to Memphis in May, which is one of the trifectas in the barbecue cooking world, if you can get a chance to actually compete, because you don't just qualify for it, you have to be selected. So I'm a part of a cooking team that's going to be going down there that's going to cook for 4 days in Memphis. So I'm pretty stoked about that. Okay, it doesn't look like I'm stoked, but I'm really, really, really stoked about it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Quite an honor there. So you have a dream to make it to the big three, the trifecta. So it's that, the Royal in Kansas City, and then the Jack Daniel's Invitational. You were telling us
Jack Daniel Invitational. If I can ever get to the Jack Daniel Invitational,
that's the one though, huh? That's the big one, the granddaddy, the Super Bowl.
That's exclusive right there. Okay. That is extremely that's like draft night. You don't know if you're going to ever get selected. You just receive an email said, hey, you're invited to the Jack Daniel Invitational. And let's see, I'm going to say somewhere around 150, 200 teams get selected around the world to go down there, and they go on to Jack Daniel's distillery and they compete and cook. And that's probably one of the highest prestige. As we were talking offline, there's a few people there that have Michelin stars that compete for this. And there's really legit chefs and cooks that go to this invitation to compete. So
yeah, as you get more into this stuff, let us know, man. If we can, we've got a big audience. The audience loves you. If there's some sort of crowdfunding thing where we can contribute a little bit here, whatever we can afford, a couple bucks, I think it's legitimate. We want to support you in what you're doing.
Humbled that you even brought of that. Thank you very much. I'll let you know, but okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
It'll keep your boss, aka your wife, if you don't have so much out of pocket expenses. So we wanted you to keep it up.
It's funny you say that. So on my shirt, it says Prez on there, and my kids. I have a daughter who is just turning 9, and my son who's 6, and they're looking at my shirt. And says, Dad, what does that mean? I'm like, well, that means I'm the Prez. He's like, well, you created that? Well, yes. He says, well, if you're the Prez, what's Mom? I'm like, well, Mom's the boss. Right. She's over finances, and I can't do anything unless Mom says so.
Right. Unless she approves that expense report, you're not going anywhere. So yeah, that's cool. So if we like to have the audience interaction here, and again, you guys are free to open up your mics, leave them open the whole time, ask questions, whether you ask them live on the mic, you can interject at any time. That's okay. Will likes the multitasking thing. You can also use the chat function. He says, that either way is good. And if Will doesn't see it, I can ask on your behalf too. If it comes in through chat, that's no problem. But make it interactive. I know that the last time we got together, we talked a little bit about doing a breakfast thing, and you kind of did that, but then you kind of did brunch mention also Kentucky Derby too, since it ends up being on Derby Day, which I found out from that email, that glorious email that I got sent, that it was Derby Day. So yes.
So yeah, well, I'll discuss the lineup real quickly.
Okay, what do we got here?
We got some sweet and savory we're gonna do, and we'll start with a mint julep, my version of it, that we're gonna start as an opening drink. Then after that, we're going to do a stuffed French toast, which is stuffed French toast is going to have cream cheese and strawberries. And then we have a bourbon whipped cream that goes with that. And it's going to also include on the sides an espresso, coffee, brown sugar, bacon. And then we're also going to do my version.
Really? That sounds interesting.
Yeah. And then the last one will be a savory end of it. We're going to do my version of eggs Benedict, but because it's Kentucky Derby, the South, I've changed a few elements. We're going to actually fry some chicken thighs, and then we're going to have gravy, Hollandaise sauce, and then we're going to have a pickled jalapeno glaze that goes with that.
Oh, this sounds good. One time I went to Jason Bronner's, and again, he's in Louisville, Kentucky, owns Bourbon's Bistro, the restaurant, and just the place wasn't open or anything like that. I was over there for breakfast, and he cooked chicken and waffles, and he got the chicken thighs and fried them up. I'm not a chef in my part-time, so I can utilize this class because I've always wanted to make that at home myself, but I just ate it and enjoyed it. So it sounds like I'll learn how to do that today. I can pair that with my waffles. It'll be good.
Well, you definitely can. We're going to at least get you on the line with the chicken, and then you can use any style of waffle you want, and boom, you got chicken and waffles.
Yeah.
Just that quickly.
Okay, yeah, because the waffles I can do. So we've got one of those waffle press things. So yeah, that's easy. Yeah. But the chicken was the hard thing for me. So cool. So all right. Well, you always start out with a cocktail. So and you said you got a twist on the official cocktail of the Derby today, the mint julep. So what are you doing here?
So we're gonna do the traditional mint julep, but because I'm trying to blend it in with our meal, which has strawberries, I'm gonna add strawberries to this. So I have some fresh mint. And by definition, or according to the actual recipe, you have a few fresh sprugs of mint. And I like to keep fresh mint and parsley in the house. And so what I'm going to do is take a few of these and just at random. Now, according to the recipe at this point,
well, I hate to interrupt, but I just want everybody to know either, in the right-hand corner, you've got two different views. You've got speaker view and gallery view. You may want to have it on gallery view, which makes it smaller, but Will's working off two screens too. I don't know that everybody knows that since not everyone has attended one of these before. So that allows you to see what he's doing while he's talking. Or so hopefully everybody can do that. Or if you want the bigger screen, that you would have to change your sound, Will. So I just want to make sure people know that there's a second screen. I didn't know if everybody knew that.
All right. So according to the normal recipe, you would take a few sprigs of fresh mint, and we would put it in a glass, and you would take some fine sugar, and we would add like a teaspoon of that. But what I did earlier is I made actually a not rosemary, but a mint simple syrup. And simple syrup is just equal parts water and sugar and whatever flavor profile you want to add to that. So I had about 6 or 7 actual leaves of mint, boiled it up, let it cool off. And this is what we're going to add to our drink. So I added about 2 tablespoons from that, and we're going to muddle this. And anytime you're muddling and making a drink, you're releasing the oils and the fragrance of whatever you're actually grinding into that. So we're just going to get it as minty as possible and just break it. And as soon as you start crushing that, you're going to start really smelling all of that mint. So we'll get that going. And someone mentioned earlier, Maker's Mark, great minds think alike. And that was what I was going to go with the bourbon to go into this mint julep. You can use whatever bourbon you want, or rye. I thought about thinking about a rye, but Maker's was where we were going to do this today. So I'm going to take a shot of this. Maybe a shot and a half. Just don't go overboard. Okay, go overboard. It's okay.
Right, you're at home.
I'm going to also throw in a few strawberries. So I threw in a few strawberries. I'm going to go back and I'm a muddle a little more. And what I'm trying to do is infuse that actual bourbon into the leaves and into the strawberries. And we're going to mix those elements in there. Not too crazy, but make sure you got some crushed ice next. Now, if you don't have crushed ice, get whole ice, use a cast iron pan, and just beat it down. You're going to fill this glass up. I mean, fill it all the way up. So I had pre-done ice earlier. Once you have that, you hit it with a little bit of soda, club soda, or soda water, or tonic, whichever you want to do. The recipe calls for actual club soda. Get a few fresh mint leaves. I'm in the way. And this is it. This is your mint julep. Pretty simple, straightforward, only a few elements. You can pre-make this actual mint simple syrup ahead of time and save it. We're actually going to use this in a couple steps of our recipes throughout. So it's not just going for a drink. Like when we start to build other elements, I'll add this into there because it's just a sweetener and it's going to have the mint flavor profile. So that is our drink of the day. Pretty simple, ready to go. And I will say cheers to everyone. And I will ask the question real quickly. Is there anyone else drinking, or am I the only one that is drinking in the midday?
I've got the highball, the new canned Jim Beam highball cocktail. This one I got.
All righty. Rick, what are you drinking on?
Well, it's not bourbon right now.
Okay.
22-year-old rum from Guadalupe.
Ah, the good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is awesome.
Awesome. Okay.
All right.
I saw Neil get up. It looks like he's going to get something to drink. So yeah.
Is he going to get something to drink?
I think so. So anybody else got something they're drinking out there? So, okay. That's small, but loyal group here drinking. You got to start early if you want to drink all day, right? Right. So
really, nowadays you got to start early, especially remember it's the Kentucky Derby. All right.
Kentucky Derby,
so,
yes.
As we go now, let's take the next step. And what we're going to focus on this next one, time-wise, is let's build our bacon. So I cook my bacon in the oven on a pan.
Okay. Yep.
So you don't cook your bacon like this. I implore you, I beg you, please try it. This is so much better than how I was raised off of cooking bacon in a skillet.
Yep.
This right here, you can control the grease, you can control every element. I usually use it in one of my pans, put some parchment paper down here, and I just bake it. But on this one, what we're going to do is we're going to add 3 elements to this.
Okay.
This will wake you up out of your sleep every time. So with this, we stretch this out, and we're going to add a little bit of freshly ground pepper. I got some pepper I've already ground up. And if you want to buy, peppered bacon already, that's okay. That'll help you with your steps.
Okay.
We get that in there. We don't want to go crazy. I use probably about 2 teaspoons, maybe. It's just to give a little bit of a texture with that pork fat.
Okay.
Then I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of brown sugar on here. Now you can go as heavy as you want with this, that's up to you.
Yeah, I think I would go pretty heavy on there. I love that.
I also massage it into it. That goes back to my barbecue days. I just massage it into there and do that. Now, this is the odd one, but yet it is the most important one coming to this recipe. It's some freshly ground coffee. So I use just the local coffee here, Seattle's Best. You can pick whatever you want. I suggest staying away from Folgers, stuff like that. But get a nice ground coffee and just sprinkle it on there. It's going to give it a nice change of pace with the flavor profile, but the aroma. So once that actual brown sugar and starts to caramelize and it gets a little bit of that coffee, trust me, you will love it. But for breakfast, this is perfect. So once we have that in there, again, I'll go back and pat that in there. And you put this into the oven and you only bake this about 20 minutes. You check the temperature or check what it looks like, but we're going to bake it at 370 in the oven for about 20 minutes, pull it out and check it on that. But what you would get from this point is when we put this in here after, excuse that, get that into the oven. Hot. This is hot. So what you get is a nice caramelized.
Oh yeah.
Bacon.
Yeah, that looks good.
And this just is the way to go when you come to your bacon. Nice sugary bacon. But so we got that where we're gonna let that cook and we'll let that see how that looks later. But now we're gonna build, at this point, our next thing is gonna be our chicken. So we're gonna get all our meat out of the way at this point.
Will.
Personally,
Will, question coming in.
Yeah. Did you?
I
Did I
personally
mention,
like.
yeah. On your bacon, do you use just regular bacon or do you use thick slice?
You can use either one, thick, thin. It doesn't matter. If you use a thicker, you might want to give yourself a few extra minutes on that, just so the cooking time. Just pay attention to what it looks like.
Okay.
Don't panic with the darkness of it. It's just going to be a little bit darker because of coffee. But you'll see it. You'll see the ends kind of bubble up. I'll show you what this looks like here in a second once it comes out.
Thanks.
Okay. What's the coffee taste like come out? Well, is it because my wife doesn't like it? She does like coffee the way it smells and stuff like that, but she's definitely not a coffee drinker. Do you think that would be something she would like, or is it so much coffee taste that she wouldn't like it?
No, so you lose all the things that most people gravitate to the coffee. The caffeine is gone. That bitterness, the bite, it's all gone.
Okay.
It just really, that coffee is more so for coloring.
Okay.
It gives a color and a little depth with the aroma, the smell of it, but the taste doesn't change. You're gonna taste more of that, depending on how much pepper you use. You're gonna taste more of the pepper and the brown sugar before you do the coffee.
Okay.
The coffee.
I'll give it a try. Yeah.
The smell.
Yeah.
The smell is the key.
Okay.
So we got that into the oven. As that's cooking right here, we want to look at our chicken thighs. Now, this is just a personal preference. You can use chicken breast. You can use whatever element, especially when you're building, say, Steve, you're doing chicken and waffles.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of time, chicken and waffles, there's wings and thighs. But me personally, when it comes to any kind of flash cooking, per se, the thighs are the best ones because of all of the actual fat content in there and just the amount of less muscle structure that comes a part of that. So it's going to make it a juicier cut of meat. So I usually go with boneless, skinless chicken thighs. And if we can get a closer look at this, it usually comes with the little fat on there, but the skin is off. So some of this stuff we just trim off. You can leave it on there, but we just trim it off and just get all of this stuff off of there, make it nice and pretty, sit on the side. And what we're going to do is we're prepping this for a brine. So it's removed all of the bones on here, but we're going to put this into like a buttermilk brine. Now, if you don't have buttermilk, what you can do is just take regular milk, and for every cup, you add a tablespoon of either distilled vinegar or lemon juice. And after 5 minutes, you have buttermilk.
Huh. Okay.
So we'll clean this up, look at all of the pieces that we don't want. I've already put my milk to the side. I didn't have buttermilk, so I had to make my actual buttermilk. Again, is for every cup of milk, and it can be 2% whole milk, whatever, we just add either distilled vinegar or you can add lemon. And so I added lemon juice with mine. So we get a few of these going. We got that. Toss it away. Now inside of your brine that you have, I'll put those in here. I also add the same seasoning flavor profile that I plan on using on my dredge, so my flouring. So inside of here, I've added a little bit of hot sauce. I've added Tabasco. Some people use Frank, red hots. What you're gonna do? I also sprinkle in a little paprika, a little salt, a little pepper, and you let this sit and marinate. Ideally, you want this to sit for 24 hours. I mean,
Okay.
5 or 6 hours, you'll be fine with that. But if you can let that marinate, and what that does is it further breaks down the actual muscles and tissues, and it's going to make it so juicy and so tender. So what you do is take this, let that marinate. From that point after that, once you have that squared away, you build a dredge, which is your flouring. And inside of this, I have just 3 cups of flour. Again, the seasonings we plan on adding. So from here, 3 cups of flour. I have 3 tablespoons of paprika, 2 tablespoons of ground garlic. Then I have a dash of, mustard, ground mustard,
Okay.
and chili powder. I added some chili powder in there. But what the key is, find you a good barbecue rub that you use. So I'm personally using in this is what Cosmos Killer Bees. And so this is what I'm going to actually use in here. And this is something you can actually use on just about anything. So if you're ever looking for another barbecue rub, Cosmos is a good one you can find online, IG or Facebook. So we're going to put that into our rub. And then once we have this mixed up, now, side note, I sidetrack. Some people like to use, at least I was raised off taking this dredge and putting it into a plastic bag or putting it into a paper bag or some form and shaking up your chicken. Whatever means you do to use a fried chicken that is good with you. I just personally use this right here. And then from that point, we take our marinated chicken that has been sitting in our buttermilk and we just sit it inside of the flour. Now, as a side note, this is not a quick process as most people may think. What I mean by that, if you've let that marinate for a few hours, this next step is best suggested that you let this sit in the refrigerator a few hours. So once you dredge this and get the flour all on the parts so you don't see any moisture whatsoever, put it on a flat tray, then you would put it back into the refrigerator for a little while. So to get into there, me personally, I like to use some gloves, cross-contaminating, get that flour into that. Let that sit for a while. Let's just let that go. So the key is we don't want to see any bald spots with this. If you don't want to marinate, you can season your chicken ahead of time and then use a double dredging method where you take some egg wash, you dip it into the egg wash and then dip it into the flour. But my suggestion is that you use it to marinate whatever is buttermilk or whatever kind of chicken marinade you may have. Excuse me. So once we have that squared away, set into the refrigerator, we're gonna now have, oh, excuse me, sorry. spices get into my throat. I probably need to take a drink.
I just posted the link to the Cosmos Killer Bee rub out there on Amazon. I'll include that in the follow-up email too, in case anybody wants to get it. That we don't have to worry about ordering it while we're here on the show if anybody is interested in that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now we got, this is going to be like this really tacky, kind of sticky, gluey situation. But what has just happened is I've let this marinate a few hours and also let it sit with the dredge a few hours. And all those seasonings that you threw in there is now just penetrated into the meat, which is going to make it that much better when you fry the chicken. So as we move over here, slowly. Steve, I need a camera crew. That's what I need.
You do. You need a camera crew.
I need a camera crew. We gotta. If there's gonna be any donations there, we gotta figure out a camera.
Camera crew. We get the whole crew in. Yes.
There you go. So we test the oil. Anytime you're frying anything, most cases it's at 350. So we are going to start actually adding this in a little bit before you hit 350. Ideally, about 320 is when you hit that. And one of the, I'll say, rookie mistakes is overloading the pan. You never overload the fryer. Cooking takes time. The less you put in, the better and equal the cooking process is. So by taking our time and actually cooking it with less pieces in there, you're going to get an even cook. So as we look at this, and you can't see it, I can see it. Trust me on this. We're sitting at 320.
320.
So now
okay.
we're going to add this into here.
We're getting the top perspective. So that's a pretty shallow pan that you use.
Thank you. Very good question. So this is not deep frying.
Okay.
This pan is probably like 3 inches tall, and I have it less than halfway in there. So this would be more like a pan frying of the situation.
Okay.
It's not a deep frying of there. So
Gotcha.
in here, I could probably fit 4 pieces. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let those 2 go right there and
Okay.
make sure that we get an even cook on that.
All right. And you got a question coming in. What type of oil are you using?
Good question. I am breaking every health law right now. I am using vegetable oil. Vegetable oil is what I'm using. You can use canola. You can use, peanut oil is a good one because of the high flash rate on that. But right now I'm using vegetable oil. Good old
That's what our moms always cooked with, right? When we were kids.
Hey,
you and I growing up in St. Louis, that's what they used.
That's it. That's all I know.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't do Crisco. I could have used Crisco. I didn't use Crisco. So we'll let that cook on there for a few minutes. And ideally, what we're shooting for is our internal temp. No matter what you're cooking, you never cook for time. You cook for temp. So depending where you live at, it may cook quicker because of the high elevation, low elevation, because it's cold outside. So never get stuck in a rut and say, hey, this is going to be 3 minutes each side or 5 minutes each side. It's never for the time. It's also for the temp. It's more so for the temp. So what we're shooting for on this one is we want an internal temp of 165, that thigh. We want that. I am not going to pull this at 165 because as an actual note, food is still cooking when you pull it out. So that's why they suggest you rest your steaks, rest meat, because it's technically cooking as you pull it out. And what is happening now is all those juices are shrinking into it, but it's still cooking. So I'm gonna pull this out here. I'm gonna check this. You wanna pull that chicken somewhere around 155, 158 if you have a thermometer. If you don't have a digital thermometer, this is a must get in every kitchen because that is how you determine if your food is done. You have to check it. So looking at this, we got a nice little crisp on it. I'm gonna flip it over there, got a nice browning on there. Let
Looking
that
good.
go there.
Yeah.
Any questions popping up so far, Steve? I can't see.
No questions coming in, but anybody feel free, again, you can open up your mics, ask questions. Will says he likes the multitasking of cooking and answering questions. So do not be shy.
So we're gonna look at that real quickly. Now don't be afraid to pull this and then have to check it. So I'll pull it and I'll get the thermometer out and look at that, check that, and see where we're at. All righty, so we're still at 120. We need to put that back in there. As another side note, never cook it on high. So I have it on a medium high. If it takes a little bit longer to cook that, that's fine. Time is your friend.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to take your time with each one of these processes. So Steve, when you're cooking your first chicken and waffles, take your time.
Okay.
Start on a medium temperature, use vegetable oil, and just don't overload the pan.
Okay.
Also, when you're cooking this, I already have a pre-pan set up where you can allow it to drain off. So as I move this without having any, let's see, well, there we go. I got a flat pan with some paper towels that I've set off to the side. Which I'm going to let this kind of rest on here and drain off. So as this is sitting here, this is still cooking. This is going to cook for the next, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes right here. And we're going to allow that to cook. All right, this is at 165 right now, 195.
Oh, you're good. Yeah,
Looks
you're
good.
good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we got that going on. We're going to set to the side because now we're going to begin to build that version, or my version, southern version of what we called a eggs Benedict, but southern. Yes, it does. Okay. All right. We're going to pull this to the side. I'm going to set this off. Get our plating squared away. Actually, I'm going to multitask while we're here. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of this chicken in here because that oil is doing really good. You know, Steve, that's one of the things that we don't talk about much is when you're cooking, usually when you cook a very small amount of food is when you have the perfect fire, you have the perfect grease, the perfect everything. And it's like, man, I wish I could get this every time I'm cooking. And
Right.
It never works that way. But right now we have it working that way. So our next step when it comes to this is we're going to make ourselves a few sunny side up eggs. Again, this is going to be a process that we're going to take our time. We're not going to overcook it. So I got this pan here. If you see in the back, I've already pre-melted some butter. So that butter is something, if you can see the clearness of it versus that cloudy at the bottom, it's clarifying it. So the actual fat has actually separated from the calcium of this. So now that top portion is the true beauty of that butter, where the bottom portion is all the impurities of that. So this is what they call by clarifying the butter right here. So we're going to scoop a little bit of it off of there. Can you see that? Yeah, we're going to scoop a little bit off of this.
Okay.
And put it in here, and we're going to start with our eggs. When you're doing your eggs, again, this is something you want to start off slow. You do not want to start hot and fast and try to do this. This is something that builds a process. So in a nonstick skillet, I can control this because I've allowed this to actually melt ahead of time. where I can just pour in just the pure part of that fat. So I've added about 3 tablespoons of butter. I have it on a medium-low heat. We're gonna move this around. Go ahead and add the 3 eggs. And let's take its time. So while that's going, we got the chicken going. It's probably a good time to put in your English muffin. Wherever you want to do that in, if you want to do a toaster, if you want to do the oven, since you have the oven going on, I just pop it in the oven, brush some butter on there, and get that to a nice crisp. You want to make sure it's really crispy because it is going to be the basis of all the flavor that you're going to dump onto this. So make sure it's not a soggy base, but you want a crispy base. As we're talking, I'm going to flip this. We'll let those eggs go. Any questions, Steve?
No questions.
Nothing yet? Okay. Well, as I say this, I let this cook. We watch this. Did we figure out what Neil was drinking yet?
Yes. It looked like he had a cocktail. So he brought one in for Melanie. Looked like it was in a derby glass. So yeah, festive.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, so we're gonna let those eggs just take their time. And the next step we're gonna build after we build this is what I'm gonna add on this. We're gonna do the layers of flavor. So I'm gonna have a chicken thigh on top of this, and I'm gonna make a gravy, a real quick gravy. We're gonna add on top of that chicken thigh. And then we're gonna add the egg, and then we're gonna add the most important part, the Hollandaise sauce. Somewhere smashed in there, I'm gonna add some caramelized onions that I've already caramelized the night before. That's something that you can do anytime you want to, and use them for sandwiches. And excuse me, a lot of spices. Caramelized onions is just pretty much butter and onions taking its time. So, side note, we're gonna let that cook up. You can see the white starting to form right there. We got the chicken on the side note there. We get our chicken out of the way. Let our eggs form. Now, at this point, you do not want to add any salt or pepper. So as you're building your eggs, you don't want to add anything to this. Salt is going to cause, the cooking process to speed up, and we don't want that. It's also going to take the moisture out of that. So we're just going to let it take its time. We have it at medium heat. Now, depending on what style you like on your eggs, on this, typically you actually poach or boil your eggs. So you have a yolky minimum, a yolky middle. I can't talk, Steve. You want a yolky middle. So we're going to allow the butter to cook this. And it's going to take a little bit of time. We're not frying these eggs. We're kind of like poaching them in the butter. That's what our plan is to this. We get our plating squared away. We'll start building this right here. Good center point there. As I mentioned before, we've already had our base squared away. We got a nice chicken thigh there. Okay. Unfortunately, you can see the background. As you see my light in this picture, but you can see this going on. I swear. So now we have a nice base going on. Because when we pull off our eggs, we're looking for a certain. It's right here. You can see it's starting to cook on this one right here. So we're gonna pull our eggs off and let them again. This is gonna cook for itself by itself. What we don't want is this. As you look at that, that's actually cooking the yolk. So it's not gonna have a runny yolk. And part of the eggs Benedict is having that actual yolk blend in with our Hollandaise sauce. So these little beautiful bourbon, I'll go back to that caramelized onions. I'm gonna add that onto that.
Those onions have bourbon in them too?
Say it again.
The onions have bourbon in it too?
Yes, it does. So that Hollandaise sauce does have bourbon in it. I mean, sorry, those caramelized onions have bourbon in it. And how we just make those is you take your time. It's like a stick of butter and 3 large onions diced really thin and slowly cook it. And like 2 tablespoons of bourbon and let this just naturally cook in. We don't add any seasoning. We don't add any flavor to it. The natural sugars in that onion is actually going to make it sweet and caramelized. And that bourbon is going to add that next flavor profile.
Okay.
So we got a little gravy we made, and I've actually had this same gravy on the recipe before. So I'll re-show this gravy, and this is just pretty much eggs we cooked in butter, a little salt, little pepper, and I added that actual Cosmos barbecue seasoning with that. That is it. I didn't do anything extreme onto that. And then we get our little egg. We're gonna add our egg to this. Right on top. Now the best part of this, the most luxurious part of this is going to be the actual Hollandaise sauce. And how do you make a Hollandaise sauce? And you want to make this last. As this sit here, this is cooking, this is fine. We don't have any issues with it. So this Hollandaise sauce is something that you want to do at the last moment. It is just as simple as egg yolk, lemon juice, and salt. That's it. I'm sorry. And you got to add a little butter. Butter is always good with everything.
Mm-hmm.
So as we put this together, I have 4 egg yolks, and you got to have a tool that's going to actually blend this together. And you want to make sure that your butter is not hot, because what we're trying not to do is cook the actual egg yolks. So I have a little hand immerser. Again, this clarified butter that we pre-done. And we're just going to blend this together, slowly pouring in this because we don't want to cook it. We're just blending the two. And we're going to get this silky, smooth, nice, elegant little Hollandaise sauce. At this point right here, this is where you add a little bit of your lemon juice. Okay. That was about a tablespoon of it. A little more butter. Because butter is always good. And it should have a custard kind of consistency. Now we're going to add our actual seasoning. We definitely don't want to do it before time. Add a little bit of salt. Mix it up again. And it's going to be nice and
Yeah.
kind of smooth. Then we drizzle that on top. To add a little bit of flair, I have some fresh chives that I set there. Get a knife on there. We're gonna add those chives. I've had some, these are actually candied jalapenos. We're gonna add those to there. A few of those, and those have bourbon in there. And this candied jalapenos is just pretty much just sugar, water, bourbon, and cayenne pepper. But I had this on our last actual blog page, how to make the candied jalapenos.
Okay.
So we can go back to add that.
I'll look that one up and make sure we include that recipe in there too.
All right, and then any juices we had to that, we'll add to there. And that is it. That is your version of a Southern version of an eggs Benedict. But we got the Southern fried chicken, Hollandaise sauce, a nice yolky egg, and this should just tear right apart with the yolk and chicken, and you have a meal.
Wow. That looks pretty good, brother. Looks pretty hearty too. Yeah, that's a nice brunch offering, something like that. Yeah. I like it.
All righty. That's our savory version of a meal right there.
Okay.
So now that we got everything else going, the bacon is in the oven. Let's work on let's clean up our area first. Let's work on our stuffed actual French toast.
Right.
So one of the things we want to start off first with this is we're going to make our actual dredge that we're going to put the stuffing in. And this is where we dip our actual French toast in. So with that, we're going to have milk, eggs, cinnamon, and we're going to have a little bit of vanilla in there. You can throw a little bit of sugar in there. It's not necessary, but this is what we're going to actually do. We want that to kind of set up first.
Okay.
So we'll get all the elements sit inside of there. Am I missing any questions, Steve?
Nope. You're caught up on questions.
All right. So that's about 4 tablespoons of sugar.
Okay.
I'm losing lights. Alrighty. We're going to add 2 cups of milk. We're going to add 3 eggs. We're going to add some vanilla. And it's going to be about a tablespoon of vanilla, not too much of vanilla. Okay, there was a question that popped up. I just saw it.
Yep. I want to know what brand of vanilla that you use.
So this was just a
Pure vanilla.
Spice Island.
Spice
vanilla
Island's pure
extract.
vanilla.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing special. If you can get Madagascar vanilla, that's like the top of the line of vanilla. That is premium vanilla. So we'll mix this together. Now, I'm not going to add my cinnamon to this just yet. I want to get this mixture together and set aside. You're welcome, Marianne. So we'll get this going, set aside. Then at this point, I'll add a little bit of cinnamon. About 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. Then mix it up again and let that set up. So we'll set this up, pull this off to the side. Start working on our cream cheese filling. And so with this cream cheese, we just got a block of cream cheese. I pre-cut up 6 strawberries. You can do what you want on that, or how many you want of strawberries you want. So I got 6 of these because I really want the strawberry flavor in there. I am then going to add our bourbon. We're going to add about 2 tablespoons of the bourbon, and back to that mint simple syrup. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of that. And then make sure that when you do this, that you have softened cream cheese, because this is going to be a frustrating task with hard or cold cream cheese. So there's this. We're just going to blend these together. It's going to take a few moments. Once we get that softened cream cheese kind of somewhat blended in, we're going to add a little bit of sugar.
Okay.
I'm going to say about a tablespoon of sugar. This is going to our stuffed French toast now. We'll mix that up, get that all nice and fancied in. And we'll put that into the refrigerator and let that sit for a second. Because now we're going to cut up our bread. We want to get this kind of to congealed and get the flavors together. And it's going to just be a mess. So we'll set that to the side and get that into the refrigerator.
Okay, off to the fridge for a little bit, and yeah.
Just to make it comfortable and make it feel like it belongs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's the next step that we want to do is cut up our bread. And that's one of the first things everybody asks is, what kind of bread do we use? I'm going to use a Chihuahua on this one. The earlier ones I put together, I used, you can use sourdough, you can use brioche, you can use so many different breads. The key, you want to make sure that it's a dense bread, that it's going to hold up to the structure, because you're going to be dipping it into the actual egg wash and then frying it, and we're going to stuff in it. So you definitely don't want to use like basic wheat bread. You definitely want to have something that's got some dents. If it's a day old, that's fine. If it's 2 days old, that's even better.
Okay.
So, because it's going to actually absorb all those flavors in there. And making sure you have a good knife. And we're going to start prepping these. Cut a few slices. Let's just do this right there. So a nice, good one. One more. Set this to the side. Get the little one off the end. Set that there. All right. So now with this, back to our chilled flavor. So what most mistakes people do is they cut the front side. We don't want to do that. We want to cut this bottom flat side.
Okay.
And we're going to kind of split it open. And we don't want to go all the way through. We're just splitting it to about a 1/2 inch to the end of it. So we got something, still closed in there, but we're going to just split this in here. Now, at that point, we grab our cream cheese that we let chill, and we start stuffing it into the actual. Now, it's not going to be much because we got to keep it closed. We're just trying to get a little bit in there. We'll set that to the side and smash it down there. We'll get this out of the way.
So initially your bread slices are about an inch thick, you would say, or
I will say they're probably like 1.5 inches thick.
an inch and a half. Okay.
So each one of these are about 3/4 to a 1/2 inch thick on each side of these. So that's
Gotcha.
a good question. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So this is probably about 1.5 inches, almost even 2 inches thick.
Okay.
And these are close to about 3/4 thick on here. These are nice, healthy, big pieces in here.
Okay.
And so as we start to fill this, it's gonna messy. Definitely don't want the youngins to help on this one.
Yeah, it'd be everywhere, right?
It'll be everywhere. And we're gonna smash that sandwich in there, get that all into that. We'll sit that there. And as we build these, there we go. We're gonna actually let these kind of set up in here also. Those will sit there. We'll get some of this out of the way. And we'll bring back our dredge. Or let me rephrase that, not a dredge, but our egg, cinnamon, milk, makeup right there.
Okay.
We'll whisk this, because what happened is that cinnamon will rise to the top. Re-whisk this, get that going. Nice smell to that. And we'll get a nice little pan going on. And we're going to introduce again some of that good butter, making sure you separate the two. And we're going to coat this with a lot of butter. I'm going to say about 4 tablespoons of butter. I don't mind if we have that actual calcium in there, because this is just not a healthy meal whatsoever. This is about making yourself feel good on a Sunday morning. So now we'll focus back on that as that's cooking up. What we'll do is just dredge this on both sides, like you would do any kind of French toast. Shake off the excess. And we need smell-o-vision, Steve.
Yes. Yes. That looks fantastic. It's going to be delicious. Yes.
Then we'll get those in there and let those cook up. On some of these, you're going to, depending on how thick it is, you may have to actually put it on the side to cook the sides. Just briefly, it's going to kind of sear it. I'm running it at a medium-high heat.
Okay.
Go back down. I'm going to cook that in there. All right, so now we got that going on. We'll let that cook. And this really, again, is about what it looks like. So be careful with it. You're going to pay attention to the coloring of it as it actually fries up. This is definitely one that you don't want to walk away from, because it'll burn very quickly with that egg and that cinnamon on there. So watch that, get that nice smell going on. And once it gets done, you're going to have a nice little setup right here.
Yeah.
It's going to have
look at
the edges is crisp on this. And we're not going to stop there. Oh, no, not us.
that. Okay.
So what you're going to do at this point, we'll take a little bit of powdered sugar, put that down on there, get that going. Some of your pre-sliced strawberries, we'll sit that into there and make that nice and lovely. What you're going to do next now, this is going to be a a game changer. You're gonna take some of that simple syrup, that mint, and you're gonna just get a little glaze of that. Put that over there. And you're gonna take some homemade bourbon infused whipped cream, and you're gonna top it. So that whipped cream, when I say bourbon infused, this is just whipping cream, sugar, vanilla, and like 2 tablespoons of bourbon.
Okay.
Then you're gonna
Oh my God.
then you're gonna take a little bit of this mint. You're gonna put a mint leaf there. And you're gonna put a mint leaf right about there. Then you're gonna go back to that bacon that you had set up a little bit earlier.
Dang, man, that looks
And
like
then
it's restaurant worthy right there.
at the last moment, you're gonna grab you some nice bourbon syrup,
Okay.
and you're just gonna go into a comatose and add that in there. And what you have there is a stuffed strawberry cream cheese, French toast with coffee bacon on the side. We'll cut into that real quickly. Make sure that looks okay. Oh, it's got a nice crust to it. Oh, the cream cheese is coming out of there. Oh, yeah. So that's a mess. I apologize.
That's good.
Oh man, that looks fantastic. Jeez, I've never cooked anything like that at home.
So that is it, Steve.
Wow, that's fantastic, man. Really, really cool. I like the sweet and savory approach here. It was neat to have 2 different takes on it. So very, very cool, buddy.
What happened? All right, there we go. So, Steve, there we go. We got a strawberry stuffed cream cheese with the coffee bacon. And we also have a, where did that go? Here we go. Our nice southern version of an eggs Benedict with chicken thighs. So, I just missed that message. What was that message?
So the message is you should try the aged syrup that they've got from Woodinville whiskey. Apparently, Brian's tried it. He says it's the best that he's tasted. So right there, for, hometown place for you. So easy access for you.
Yeah, that one.
There you go. There it is.
Yeah, we I have to get back to Seattle to buy some more. We're like rationing a little bit we have left.
Yeah.
Well, you send me your address and I'll send you some, my brother.
There you go. How about that? You don't have to go to Seattle. You got a connection there now. So there you go. You're Seattle guy.
Yeah, we moved from Seattle to Boulder, so we go back pretty often pre-COVID.
Send me the information, Steve, and I'll make sure I send the bottle out. Matter of fact, anybody that wants one of those, that the Woodinville bourbon on it, let me know. It's in the stores, the grocery store. So
Oh, really?
I can just they sell it in our Kroger's and our Fred Meyer's. So I can just go pick it up and I can send it out to you. Not a problem.
Okay. There you go. That's great. Really cool stuff. So questions for Will, and kind of 2 parts. Also, what would you like to see down the road? Because it's best when he works off of requests, he's saying. So he really wants you guys to incorporate it. It could be main courses. It could be side dishes, whatever you like. And he's going to try to keep a list and get to all of them. So, if we're not getting into it next month or next time we do one of these, he'll get to it soon down the road.
So, Will, what about maybe an appetizer menu for like a party and then a pitcher size recipe for a drink?
There you go. A little batch cocktail situation and appetizers. You can never go wrong with that, because even if you just pick and choose, you have a smaller party. If you come up with several different ones, it could be a party where you use all of them, or it could be you're just drawing and using some of them. So yeah,
let's make that happen. I definitely got a few appetizers for sure. So let's make the next show based off of appetizers and a large pitcher version of some kind of bourbon deal.
Okay.
That's it. Done deal.
Good.
Appetizers and batch cocktails. So
Yep. Got
Yeah,
it.
that's good. That's a good
All right.
suggestion, Melanie. I like that. What
Yeah,
else?
we're having such right now. Our Derby guest came over, so that's why we're off camera for a little while.
Oh, okay.
No worries. No worries at all.
Anything else you want to ask Will? And it could be about anything about today's preparation or anything like that. Like I said, we'll send out recipes too in the coming days, as well as a link to the old one. I'll send you a link to the next one where we'll obviously, and we know what we're going to be doing now. We're going to do the appetizers and the batch cocktail. But yeah, so there'll be several things. It probably might end up being more than one email I send you.
Yes.
But yeah.
I have
Should
a
be
question
up-
about cooking bacon in the sheet pans. What do you use, like convection oven? Do you like what temperature do you cook it at? Is it a broil? Do you flip it? Like,
I don't flip it. I do use it on in my oven at 270, 275.
okay.
There is a convection van on there, but if you just bake it, it's a this stove that I had before, just regular baking it at 375 was fine, and I do not flip it. No.
Okay.
I will say I do drain it. So right before the last 5 minutes is done, I'll pull it out and drain the fat out of there and re-put it back in there, and it's going to guarantee the crisp of it. So that's the way to make sure it's crispy.
Crispy.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you guys want to know?
And I would be interested in some barbecue sort of recipes.
Barbecue?
Okay.
Yeah.
We're moving into barbecue season here in Toronto. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that.
Same here. Although it's always barbecue season for me. So
Yeah, it is at our house too, even when there's 3 feet of snow. So
Yeah.
amen.
Yep. So yeah, that'll be good. I like at Bourbon's Bistro, they do the real thick pork chop, like a real thick one. I'd love for you to do something like that too, to show me how to. I'm a little scared of that. A big thick pork chop like that. I don't want to screw that up because it's probably going to be pretty pricey up front. So at some point we should do something like that.
Let's do that. We can do that the next one. I definitely can do 2 versions of that. Maybe one that we can roast in the oven, and one that we can actually do on a grill.
Okay.
So it'll give you 2 different options.
Okay. Pork chop and grill. I'll get you a list too. Well, I'm writing these down, so you got
Okay.
And grill. Okay. Yeah.
Will, do you have a favorite bourbon recipe?
Do I have a what bourbon recipe?
A favorite. What's your favorite recipe with bourbon? Have you got one?
I do. So I do. I have this a version of a Jack Daniel glaze. So I don't know wherever you live at if you have a TGI Fridays, but for a while TGI Fridays had this version of a Jack Daniel glaze that you can replicate offline. So I use that on my wings, burgers, I mean everything. So that is my favorite bourbon recipe that I use. That has pineapple juice in there, teriyaki. It's a really sweet, in-depth actual recipe, and it goes on anything. Kind of like a TGIF was doing. They were putting it on the burgers, wings, shrimps, whatever. That's my favorite by far. That's I by changing it from Jack Daniels, I don't use Jack Daniels. Sometimes I use Maker Mark, Woodinville. I'll use Jefferson's, whoever I have at that moment. And there's just a whiskey wing sauce. So that's what I call it. That's my favorite by far.
Okay, thank you.
Close second, though, I will say close second, a bourbon pecan pie. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay. All
You
right.
got to incorporate that into one of these, Will. So yeah.
Yes.
Because we haven't done that.
I will sell my family for that. Not without even hesitation. Won't even second guess it.
Brian had a suggestion, and this one would be a good to pair with the pork chop, because the signature dessert at Bourbon's Bistro is their bourbon bread pudding. So
I saw that.
if we could pair that with the pork chop again, because that's what I get when I go to Bourbon's Bistro. My main course is I never have room for the bourbon bread pudding, though I've had it before. It's excellent, but that would be a good that right there is a one of these classes. So for sure,
Done deal. I mean, that bourbon pudding is half of the stuff that we use today, honestly.
Okay.
With the bread, and then building that custard that you toss it in,
Yeah.
and then putting it in the oven and cooking it, and just whatever toppings or whipped creams you got on it. Yeah, I'm all for that. That would be a good one.
Okay.
Maybe more bourbon, but
Yeah. Yep. Cool. What else do you guys want to know? Any questions for Will?
Yeah, well, I because it's French and I butcher the name all the time, but basically water bath cooking.
say it again.
Basically water bath cooking.
Oh, yes.
Sous vide.
Sous vide.
Sous vide. Have you ever done that?
I have done that on steaks and things like that. I need to do more of it.
Yeah, last
Go ahead.
Christmas I ran across a really good deal on a unit and bought it, and I've had some really great experiences with it, especially thick pieces of meat.
Yeah.
Set a temperature.
It's especially good on big, large cuts of meat.
Yeah.
It's good. A lot of people use it for boiling eggs. Things that you're trying to dial down to the exact temperature. For instance, the ribeye, throw that in there, sous vide it. You'll get it to the exact temp you want, and then you can just sear it. It's another process of reverse searing it. But yes.
Yeah. It works great because you bring it up to a temperature, take it out of a bag and throw it in a skillet or broiler and finish it in a couple of minutes.
It's a great way to cooking, especially on just everyday cooking, middle of the week. You want to throw like the pork chops in there.
Yeah.
Get them to temperature and just sear them off, and your meal is done.
Yep.
Cool. Anything else in terms of questions about today, or just questions about cooking in general, or suggestions for future classes? Just a suggestion there. Cook bacon in the oven on the broiler pan so the fat drains out of the bottom of the pan. That is a good idea, right, Will?
Yep.
Yeah. And you don't have to.
Do you take that bacon fat and drain it into a skillet so you cook eggs in it?
I should be doing that, but I should be, but I don't. I should be.
That's about the only time that I ever do fried eggs at home and I love fried eggs. But after I cook a pound or two of bacon in a skillet and have a lot of bacon grease.
Yeah.
Thank you, Teresa. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, there you go. That is today's cooking show. So, Will, as always, really appreciate everything that you do, man.
Thank you.
Thank you
great
so
stuff.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you, guys.
job,
You guys
Yeah.
enjoy the rest of your weekend and enjoy the Derby. All right. See you
Oh,
guys.
thanks, Steve.
All right. All right.
Welcome,
Bye.
Brian. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Will. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Take
Thank you.
care.
Bye.